Mirasee.
I really want to change the way kindness is seen. I want to make kindness a power move, to reframe kindness not as being nice, but as this courageous force that helps us show up for ourselves and also to show up for others and even our world.
Hi, I'm Dr. Irena O'Brien, and you're listening to Neuroscience of Coaching. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist with almost 30 years of study and practice in psychology and neuroscience. And as the founder of the Neuroscience School, I teach coaches and other wellness professionals real-world, evidence-based strategies to use in their own practices. In each episode, I invite a seasoned coach to discuss a topic that affects our field, and together we provide you with science-based tools to help your clients reach their goals by working with their brains to create results that last. Today, we're diving into a topic that every coach and really every person needs in their toolkit: self-compassion. Let's be honest, when things go wrong, people tend to react in one of two ways. We either get defensive and blame someone or something outside of us, or we turn inward and tear ourselves down. We know this about clients, but if we're honest, we do it ourselves as well. The problem is either reaction blocks growth. Defensiveness keeps us from learning. Harsh self-criticism leaves us feeling incapable and stuck. But neuroscience is showing us there's a better way. Treating ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a close friend doesn't make us soft. It actually helps us perform better, bounce back faster, and stay connected to our authentic selves. In this episode, we'll explore fascinating research that shows how different emotional responses, like self-criticism versus self-compassion, activate distinct regions of the brain. When we criticize ourselves, the brain lights up in areas like the anterior insula, anterior cingulate cortex, and amygdala, regions associated with threat, pain, and emotional reactivity. In contrast, when we engage in self-reassurance and compassion, those threat-related responses decrease, and we see increased activity in areas linked to emotional regulation and safety, like the medial prefrontal cortex. We'll also look at how compassion practices increase heart rate variability, a marker of a well-regulated nervous system, and how this physiological shift helps us build resilience, focus, and presence under pressure. Whether you coach entrepreneurs, executives, or everyday people trying to lead better lives, understanding the science of self-compassion can transform the way you guide others and the way you treat yourself. So, to help us better understand the secrets to self-compassion, I'm joined today by a leading coach on this topic. Emma-Louise Elsey is the founder of Fierce Kindness, which provides practical tools, ideas, resources, and community for people who want a kinder and braver world. Emma-Louise completed her life coach training at the Coaching Academy in England in early 2004, and soon after moved to Vancouver, Canada. She is also the founder of Simplicity Life Coaching and the Coaching Tools Company. She is both a Personal International Coach Federation member and an ICF Business Solutions partner. Her philosophy and the mission of Fierce Kindness centers around the belief that our world needs courage combined with kindness now more than ever. Emma-Louise, I'm so grateful that you could join me on the show today.
Oh, I'm really excited to be here, Irena. It's been a long time coming, this conversation.
Yes, it has. Yeah, we've known each other for quite a while now. So, how did you come to have such a strong passion for self-kindness and make it the focus of your business?
Okay, that's kind of an easy one, and it's a story, of course. Like so many people, for years I had a strong and perhaps vicious inner critic that really drove me to perfection. It caused me a lot of anxiety and stress. And of course, at times it made me feel like an imposter. And despite moving halfway around the world and changing careers, changing from a project manager and a relationship manager to being a life coach, my critic came too. And I tried so many things to fix my anxiety and my critic, so many techniques. But I discovered that the answer to managing my anxiety and my critic was not to stuff it down, ignore it, or override it. Instead, I learned that I had to be kind to myself. But beyond kindness, I actually needed to be fiercely kind. I think in this culture where kindness is seen as weakness or soft, and I think you mentioned this in your intro, we need to reframe kindness as strength. And I think Brené Brown does some of this with her vulnerability work, reframing vulnerability as strength and courage. And so fierce kindness came about because as the years went by, I began to see how beyond managing our inner critic and setting boundaries with others, which is another self-kindness tool, fierce kindness could be a way of being that actually changes our world, where each of us courageously takes action to make a difference with kindness. So many of us are tired, busy, and overwhelmed, and we're really hard on ourselves. So fierce kindness offers a new way of being that is so needed right now. And there's so much research on self-compassion. It's such a hot topic right now.
Yeah, there is a lot of research on self-compassion, and that's something that I do talk about the importance of self-compassion. Because without self-compassion, change is impossible. It's really hard to change if you don't have self-compassion and accept that this is the way things are right now.
Yep. So self-acceptance, self-compassion, it's hard to do in our culture. And I think part of that is we're all so busy. We're on all the time. We're on technology. We're not sleeping. You've probably done an episode on sleep and the importance of rest and sleep. We're all overcommitted in our careers and our personal lives. We're on technology all the time. And many of us have a lot of caring to do as well, whether it's aging parents or children or both. And we just don't have enough downtime. And so without that downtime, we don't get the chance to slow down and reflect and give us the spaciousness to see that we even need self-compassion.
So do you see slowing down as being part of self-compassion and self-kindness?
Yes, that's an easy answer. I think any form of change, and I think you probably teach this, all change starts with awareness. And we can't have awareness if we're rushing around, if we're busy, if our minds are full. So I have a method to be kind to yourself. So once you realize you need kindness, and I think we should maybe talk about that a little bit in a minute, like how to know when we need kindness. But the first step of this process, it's the pact process. I call it making a pact with yourself. And step one is pause. P for pause. Put your hand on your heart. Just notice what is going on with yourself. Slow down, take a deep breath, pause.
Okay, so what is the A?
The A is ask yourself, what kind of kindness do I need right now? So what would self-kindness look like? But I think the easiest question to ask is just what do I need right now? Or even what do I need to hear right now? And then the C is all about choosing something, because there are many answers to that question of what do I most need right now? But sometimes we might most need to go to sleep, but we're about to go into a huge meeting. So that choose is looking at the range of options of things we could do. So if you're exhausted, you might need to take a nap. You might need to go to bed early. You might need to go for a long weekend or a vacation somewhere. And so there's many options. So choosing is C is choose, and the last one is T for time. And this is really crucial because we need to tell ourselves when we're going to do it. If you can't do it right now, you're about to go into that massive meeting, maybe all you can do is take a few breaths. But your inner child, whatever you want to call it, there's a part of yourself that needs to be honored. You need that self-kindness. So you need to choose a time when you're going to do it. So it's either right now, or you say to yourself, I'm committing to giving myself an early night tonight, or I'm going to have a nap as soon as that meeting is over. And I like to use the example of a child who wants an ice cream. If your child says, I want an ice cream, and it's kind of screaming away because that's what it needs, and you tell it, oh, you can just have an ice cream later. The first thing the child wants to know is when. But when am I going to get my ice cream? And I think that's a little bit like when we're exhausted, once we've realized we need kindness and we've said, okay, I'm going to do this. We need to choose a time when we're going to do it. We need to commit to ourselves. And that also helps us calm down. Okay, I know I'm going to take a nap afterwards. I know I'm just going to take 3 deep breaths right now. I know I'm going to go take a weekend off.
That can calm down the mind.
Yes.
Setting the intention.
Yes. So that's what it is. It's setting the intention for what you're going to do. And then that allows us to relax. Okay, you've heard me, you've listened, and now I can relax.
Yes. So for people who see self-kindness and compassion as a soft, feel-good concept, what are some of the ways that you help them see that it's serious and can have great benefits?
Well, one of the easy things to do is just to literally talk about the benefits of kindness and help someone realize the benefits of kindness for them. So better physical health, lowering our stress hormone, cortisol. That's one thing of self-kindness. Being kind to ourselves helps us make better lifestyle choices. I think there are studies that show that it's been shown to regulate our emotions, reducing our mood swings, and reducing anxiety and feelings of depression. One of my favorites is that self-kindness actually boosts our confidence, because being kind to ourselves is literally an act of valuing ourselves. Just by being kind to ourselves, what you're saying is, I matter. And I think that makes us feel, that boosts our confidence. It makes us feel good. Another really helpful one is, I don't know that it reframes kindness as strength, but people don't want to be seen as unkind. And what drives a lot of people to be kinder to themselves is when they think about it and they realize that when they're kinder and nicer to themselves, that they're a better person with others. So we're less snippy, we're less tense. We all know that when we're stressed and overwhelmed, we can be really quite unpleasant with others sometimes, and usually the people we care most about. So that can be that's a really good way to get a wedge in with people who need a little bit more of a push to be kind to themselves.
Yeah. And it can also help people deal with procrastination better, right? Because when you if you beat yourself up over the fact that you've procrastinated, it makes you more likely to procrastinate the next time. Whereas if you have some self-compassion, it's not letting yourself off the hook. It's recognizing that you're only human and that you have all this range of emotions and behaviors that are also human. And when you have the self-compassion, then you can choose not to procrastinate the next time, or it's easier not to procrastinate the next time. That's counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive that being kind to yourself it's interesting that procrastination, when we're putting things off, we're usually putting things off because of some kind of fear.
Exactly.
There's some kind of unconscious fear. So if you can be kind to yourself, then that part of you that's afraid feels comforted and taken care of. And then the fear it relaxes. And then we're more likely to get things done. But yes, you're absolutely right. It does seem a little counterintuitive that when we're procrastinating, it's like, oh, go and have that nap. That might be just what you need.
You're right, though. People are not kind to themselves. They keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And look at all these performance coaches, right? And productivity that's what I hear. If you go on LinkedIn, you'll see all this performance and productivity. That's all they talk about.
Yeah, I think capitalism, it's where we all live, this idea that profit and more is better, more productivity, more profit. So our societies, I think the society we're raised in and we work in, they want us to work hard, and then it wants us to spend more and buy more stuff. These big corporations, I think they want our bodies, our time, and our energy to produce stuff and make money. But what's interesting is in our personal time, we're also being manipulated. The corporations, they want our attention. Social media, television, advertising, they just want us to buy more stuff, to pay attention to what they're doing. And I think we're just overwhelmed. Our brains are full. But we do it to ourselves too, Irena. We overcommit in our personal lives, in our careers, and our business. I mean, we already talked about we often have caring to do, whether it's parents or children, and our brains are full all of the time.
And not just our brains, our lives are full, right? You often hear, people work hard and play hard.
And that gets tiring. And then what?
Yeah. There's some interesting research that people who do hard cognitive work for 6 hours at a stretch, by the end of the 6 hours, that their decision-making suffers. They tend to make decisions that are easier to make and where the reward is more immediate. And so that doesn't mean that you're making the best decision for your life or for your business at the end of a hard day.
I was just thinking at the end of a hard day when what I should be doing is eating something healthy or having my dinner, I reach into the snack drawer or grab the nuts or the chocolate because that's the instant reward. But if we do that all the time, it's not good for us.
No.
Oh, something that doesn't get talked about very much is that being kind to ourselves makes us more creative. Self-kindness promotes this kind of supportive, positive, and less critical inner atmosphere. So it's easier to have ideas. We're more likely to take creative risks because we're being more supportive of ourselves and less focused on what our inner critic thinks.
That's also because our brain slows down. And we need a relaxed brain, really, in order to be creative and to have insight. A thing that I teach often, or I always teach, is about the importance of self-acceptance, which is related to self-compassion. And self-acceptance, when you can accept your personal experience, right? And usually what we need to accept, it's easy to accept the positive experiences, but the negative experiences or our negative feelings are often difficult for people to accept. But if you can accept those, what happens is that the emotional salience goes down, so it becomes less triggering, and it even reduces activation in the amygdala. And the amygdala is a seat of emotion, and particularly fear and anxiety. And that's just by accepting. And accepting doesn't mean liking it. It just means acknowledging what is. Like, this is how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, and that's the pause part of my pact process for being kind to yourself, pausing long enough to recognize what's going on. So one of the things I see a lot of with self-kindness is not that people don't know what to do, it's that they're not willing to do it. People don't value themselves enough to be kind to themselves. They think they haven't earned the rest or the care yet. They haven't done enough. They haven't earned it yet. So being kind to ourselves is actually an act of self-respect. It's an act of kindness, but it's really rooted in self-worth. How much do you value yourself? How much do you accept yourself and let yourself be just the way you are?
Yeah. And the other thing, going back to self-acceptance, the other thing about self-acceptance is that when we accept our circumstances or our experience, it leads to better psychological health. People with good psychological health don't have more positive experiences. They just accept their negative experiences.
I love that. And I'm thinking about when I had like a really strong inner critic. And it still comes up from time to time. I should say that as well. It doesn't just magically disappear.
We're only human.
We're
right?
human. It takes practice. But I know if you're in a conversation with someone and your critic is popping up in the background, it's talking away at you. It's taking up your capacity to think while it's like, oh, well, you made it. You didn't do that right. And you shouldn't have said that. And you can't even think straight when you have a criticism going on inside your head. So if you can accept yourself, Irena, if you can just allow whatever's going on to be, then that voice quietens down and it gives you more clarity to think straight and to be the best you can be.
Do you use meditation in your work?
In my personal life, absolutely. And it was a big change for me, was to learn to rest in whatever's going on in my mind, to create that spaciousness. And whenever I do a webinar, I like to bring in a little kindness piece, a little breathing, a meditation, some kind of guided practice to either connect us to our bodies or to allow our minds to flush out whatever's going on. So meditation, forms of guided meditation, and something that allows us to embody to feel into our body and feel connected to ourselves is crucial to the work that I do.
Okay. So I know the purpose of meditation is to train the mind. And so there are different forms of meditation. And if you're the kind of person who lives in your head, a sitting meditation might not be right for you, but you could do the more active kinds of forms of meditation. So when we had our dog, I remember walking, it was my job to walk him in the morning. And I realized that one day that I came home and I didn't even realize where I had walked. It was like it had been a blur because I wasn't paying attention. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to do a walking meditation. And so I kept bringing my mind back to the circumstances. It was spring, the trees were budding, and the dogs sniffing whatever they sniff, and it was just it was amazing. And I came home after a half-hour walk, and I felt like I had been on a holiday
Oh, wow.
just by keeping my mind in the present moment. And so I started to do that regularly, and then I found that I could control my thoughts.
Yeah. Meditation is really powerful. And I've tried a number of different ways. And now I use whatever I feel like doing in the moment. But there's walking meditation. When I was very busy, I was working in London, in England, and I would have a 20-minute walk from the train station up to work. I would focus on using a different sense. So you can use your senses, different senses to focus on. So I would walk up to work and I would be listening. I would be listening for birdsong. And yes, there's a traffic and there's a honk and then there's some coffee being made over here. And just getting myself out of my thoughts into my senses. Sometimes I like to use feeling. So if I sit in the sun and I really focus on feeling the sun on my skin or the wind ruffling my hair. So you can use your senses. Guided meditation can be a very powerful way to calm for people who do have busy minds. And then you can also focus on objects. My favorite is probably a candle flame or something because it flickers. Just see if you can just let everything fall away and focus on the candle flame flickering.
Yeah, so now as we're talking about self-kindness and self-compassion, I think really the result is that it calms the mind.
It absolutely calms the mind. And I think self-kindness ultimately makes you happier because you're nicer to other people. You might be more creative. You're calmer. You're more self-accepting, less self-judgy. You feel better about yourself. You might be making better health choices, both physically and mentally. You're better at decision making. And I think ultimately for me, self-kindness gives you a better life. It makes you feel better about your life and your experience of life is more pleasant.
And other people are kinder to you, hopefully.
So I went on a week-long retreat, a silent retreat, and it was in California. So when I flew back, at the airport, I had some time and I was just in such this kind of like glowing kind of space. And I remember I'm moving through the airport and I had to move my flight and it all just went so easily. And I went to this store and they gave me a free sample and I had this conversation and I just felt this love for the world. But I think because I felt this love for the world and I felt so good, everyone responded, and because your energy is different. So that speaks to this idea of the ripple effect of self-kindness. When you're kind to yourself, you're kinder to others, and it kind of creates this ripple effect where everyone's kinder to each other.
Yeah, the heart math really talks, or they do a lot of research in that, right? In the ripple effect of energy through breathing. Do you use breath work too?
Breath work, I mean, the only breath work I do, I guess, is maybe putting my hand on my heart and my stomach and doing deep breathing, and maybe counting. That's one of the meditation methods you can do is counting and then recounting. But for a lot of people, that can be boring, and if you have a really busy mind, it can be extremely frustrating. Did you have something else in mind when you mentioned breath work?
It's just that I do train my heart rate variability. So you know what heart rate variability is, right? But for the audience who doesn't know, people think that our heart beats at a regular rhythm, but it doesn't. It's faster on the in-breath and slower on the out-breath. And heart rate variability is the difference between the heart rate on the in-breath and the heart rate on the out-breath. And you want to maximize that, right? And that's because the in-breath activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response, and the out-breath activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response. So you want to make sure that your out-breath is at least as long as your in-breath. Because when you do that, then you're relieving the stress. And you want to try and maximize the difference between the heart rate on the in-breath and the heart rate on the out-breath. And that's called heart rate variability. And that is calming. If you start training that, then you can calm down. And they also use appreciation, right? When you're practicing the breathing, you use appreciation. And that has a huge calming effect. It reduces blood pressure pretty much immediately. And there are a whole lot of other benefits.
So you asked if I did breath work. So now that I know where you were going with that, when I'm going to bed at night, sometimes one of the things I do is I will breathe in for 3 counts, breathe out for 3 counts, and then hold for 3 counts. So I think that ties in with you make your out breath longer than your in breath, and that's calming.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there are things like the physiological sigh, right? Because we all tend to do this. We do regular breathing, and then at certain intervals, we go, and we all do that, and that's because our body needs the extra oxygen at that time. But if you're doing deliberate breathing, the out breath should really be as long or longer than the in breath. And there are different methods of breathing, and you just find one that works for you. Another one is probably 3 counts on the in breath, then you hold that for 4 counts, and then you breathe out for about 8 counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely works. I know that it works for calming when I need to calm and when I need to go to sleep. So,
Yeah. You mentioned an important element is getting better at recognizing when we need self-kindness. So tell us more about that.
so one of the things I used to struggle with is knowing when to be kind to yourself. And yes, you can sit down at any point in time and say, what do I need? What do I need right now? But I think in daily life, we get busy. So we need a trigger, a nudge, something that says, okay, I need to be kind to myself now. And so the way I've learned to do that is using stress signals, using our signals of stress that tell us when we're stressed. And then that is how we know we need to be kind to ourselves. And there are kind of 4 main areas of knowing that we're stressed. One is physical. So things that change in our body, like headaches. I get tense neck, shoulders, and jaw, an increased heart rate, feeling dizzy or nauseous, stomach cramps, breakouts, or a sinking feeling. These are all physical signs that we're stressed. There's emotional changes, like feeling sad or tearful. Sometimes we get grumpy, angry, or we notice that we're getting easily frustrated over things that shouldn't bother us, or we feel guilty. And nostalgia is an interesting one that sometimes comes up for me when I start thinking, when it used to be like that. That for me is a little nudge that I might be feeling stressed and wishing things were different. Then there's thinking changes, and this is where there's probably a lot of neuroscience, like when our body gets foggy and slow thinking, or when we have racing thoughts, we might notice an increase in self-judgment, or we might think that we're unlovable, or we might start, it's called globalization, where it's like, oh my God, everything is so bad, terrible. And then the last one is behavioral changes. So we might make unhealthy choices. Like for me, I go straight to the snack drawer. So if I'm going to the snack drawer and I'm not hungry, that's a sign that I might be stressed. Or being more indecisive than usual, withdrawing from others, being snippy or intolerant, or being oversensitive, and swearing more. Shall I share I could share my 5 top stress signals.
Sure, that would be interesting.
Tense shoulders, jaw, and neck. This is where I hold all my stress and tension. So when I notice I have a headache or tense shoulders and my jaw, Irena, I'm ashamed to admit it. Well, ashamed, embarrassed. I swear. I start swearing more when I'm stressed. I find that I rush things unnecessarily. So I'm kind of like trying to do several things at once and I'm rushing, and that's a sign that I'm stressed. Going to the snack drawer I already mentioned. And the last one, which is really helpful for me, is I have this strong urge to tidy things and make a list. So when I notice I have this compulsion to make a list, it's a sign that I'm stressed, that I'm feeling overwhelmed, that I've got too much going on. And so those are my kind of top 5 stress signals. And those are the cues to say, okay, to follow my PACT process, to pause, ask what I need, to decide what I'm going to do, to choose something that I'm going to do, and tell myself to soothe myself when I'm going to do it. So that's a core kind of fierce kindness practice right there.
Yeah. So mine, I used to feel overwhelmed a lot. I still do. So one of the things I think that people need to recognize also, when is their ideal time to do the hard cognitive work? Because if you're a morning person and you want to do this hard cognitive work in the afternoon, you're going to be stressed about it because it's just not flowing.
Yes, I save my creative work for the morning. And if I try and do something that needs my creativity in the afternoon, my brain's already kind of tired by then. And then you're right, you get frustrated. And it's easy then for your critic to pop up and start finding fault with you. But some people, I have creative friends. Actually, I have two really good friends who are both creative, and they both love to work in the evening. Like one of them works in bed on their laptop, just doing creative stuff, and that's when they're happiest. Now that would be awful for me.
Yeah, that would be awful for me too. I'm a morning person, so I do all my writing and all my thinking about neuroscience. Not thinking, but the writing, because that's the hard part in the morning. And if I don't get it done by, let's say, by noon, it's not going to get done in the afternoon. Although you'd be surprised, like if you're under a time stress, time pressure, how much work you can get done under time pressure. But you don't want to be doing that all the time. So yeah, and so I'd realized that I used to get overwhelmed probably around like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd start to get really overwhelmed. And yeah, and then I noticed that it always came on with a sense of fatigue. So I started to take a nap in the afternoon, and only a half hour, so not very long. Then it would enable me to work an extra hour or two after that.
I love that. You recognized that you had a sign of stress, that you were feeling tired and fatigue, and then you took a nap. And so that's a perfect example, a story of how to get people to be kind to themselves. It's like, I was tired, I was fatigued, I recognized that, I gave myself what I needed, a nap, and then I could work a little bit more and I was creative again. Although, what's interesting with that, Irena, and I think that's very helpful and a great story, I think we do need to be careful not to get into the idea that kindness to yourself allows you to work harder and do more and be more productive. I think it's true. But I think it would be sad if all our kindness, self-kindness, was just used to try and work harder and do more.
That is a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. So another thought just popped into my head is that we also need to be careful about the words that we use, right? Stress is a word that is overused.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a category rather than just being a word. Because if you look under stress, there are all different kinds of words that you could use. Just take out a feeling wheel and you can see you can use words like frustrated, disappointed, even angry, right? And they have a different feel about them because stress is such a huge word. It has a permanence about it.
Yeah, we say I'm stressed a lot, don't we? I'm stressed.
We do. But imagine how just saying I'm frustrated, like that's so temporary. Like you can't be frustrated for weeks on end, but you can be stressed for weeks on end, and people are. So just changing the words that you use can relieve that stress.
Yep, I think that's a very powerful tool. And you could do that as part of your pause. When you pause, it's like noticing what's going on with yourself. For me, often what I'm feeling, surprisingly enough, I get frustrated, but is fear. Fear that I'm not going to get things done, or fear that if I do something wrong, my critic's going to pop in there. I think a lot of us feel a lot of fear quite a lot of the time.
So what do you find to be the biggest obstacle in helping people to be more kind to themselves?
I think the biggest obstacle is our beliefs about kindness and about self-kindness, that we do see it as weak and soft. I think there's a little, I'm going to make a generalization here. I think there's a little bit of a gender divide sometimes. Women feel guilty when they're kind to themselves because they should maybe be taking care of others. And men feel shame when they're kind to themselves because they should be stronger. That's a huge generalization and it's gender-based, but there are some broad ideas in there that are really connected to societal beliefs that we've brought on to ourselves. For example, I know even though I'm a woman, I tend to feel shame, or at least I used to feel shame when I was kind to myself. I should be able to push through. I should be able to do this. So I think, and that's so endemic in our culture.
It is endemic in our culture. So you're a real maverick pushing this fierce kindness.
Well, that's where the fierce comes in. I really want to change the way kindness is seen. I want to make kindness a power move, to reframe kindness not as being nice, but as this courageous force that helps us show up for ourselves. And also, we were talking about self-kindness today, but to show up for others and even our world, because we look at what's going on in our world and it is so volatile and uncertain right now. And I think to have kindness, thinking of others, combined with that courage to do the right thing and speak up. So fierce kindness is all about bringing a different kind of balance to blend kindness with courage so that we can navigate difficult situations with both courage and compassion.
Okay. So finally, before we finish up today, is there anything else you'd like to say about this topic?
Yes, I think we've covered a lot today, but I would really like people to think about kindness and self-kindness as an antidote to this burnout culture that we are all living in, and that taking care of ourselves is the first step in making our own lives and our world a better place.
Thank you for that, Emma-Louise. That's an excellent point to wrap up our conversation. So what's the best way for listeners to learn more about you and your work?
Thank you. Yes, so fiercekindness.com. You can sign up for our newsletter and get a free mini workbook with 35 fiercely kind self-care actions. And it also has a little reminder of the PACT process in there. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love that. So that's all over at fiercekindness.com.
Okay, Emma-Louise, I truly appreciate your time on the show today.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Irena, for the great conversation and all the neuroscience tips that you bring to that. It was lots of fun.
So thank you everyone for listening. Our biggest takeaway today is that self-compassion isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the choice to treat ourselves with care instead of criticism, especially when things don't go as planned. And that choice doesn't just feel better, it leads to better outcomes. When we respond to setbacks with kindness and perspective, we create space to grow, to try again, and to lead from a grounded, authentic place. Whether you're coaching others or walking your own path, remember this: you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You just have to keep showing up with courage, with compassion, and with the belief that change is always possible. I hope my conversation with Emma-Louise helps you to show up with courage and compassion more often in your life and to make the world a better place in the process.